From Pod World headquarters, this is the Carolina Insider from Learfield.
We're back. Time for another edition of the Carolina Insider. Jones and Adam here with you. Guys, I did it. I got Adam.
No! You'll never take me alive, Angel!
Kicking and screaming. Stealing all my Cameo money.
I had the flight all booked for Tahiti, and then with my Cameo money, and then Jones made me come in here and do a pod, and I missed my flight.
Cameo.com/JonesAngel.
Or if you want somebody who will actually do it on time, Cameo.com/JAdamLucas, I think.
Yeah. I'll get to that, Adam. Adam's physically taking money out of my pocket.
I can't hear you with these dollar bills stuck in my ears.
As you can tell, we have a very serious show upcoming. Since our longtime OG here on the pod gets 5 cents for every play, a reminder that it's Friday.
It's Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend, partying, fun, looking forward to the weekend.
That's not true at all. We don't give Rebecca Black any money, but
That's how I like to do things, Jones.
Yeah.
I profit off the back of people who do the work, and then
that's what I've heard.
I just fill the moat around my castle with all the dollar bills that I steal from them.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
You know what my friend told me?
That's what I heard on Twitter.
You know what my friend told me? Mo money, mo problems, Jones.
Well, Adam is refreshed. How you feeling? Are you back?
I'm always back. Some people get sick, and I just keep going.
I feel like I'm almost back. I still have every now and then a little lingering cough.
Yeah.
Not COVID. Took multiple COVID tests, all negative.
I'm convinced it's from the Philadelphia hotel.
Dude, that would not surprise me at all. It wouldn't. It was, look, the Tar Heels have had a good experience in Philadelphia. They've had good results there. They have won some big games there. The hotel was not the cleanest. Although what I have learned, Adam, and was unaware of this, apparently, like, that's just hotel life now. Like, they don't clean your room as often as they used to.
I accept that because we stayed in other hotels during the course of our NCAA tournament and ACC tournament experience, and we encountered that. But nowhere did we encounter the level of outright disregard for human cleanliness that we experienced at that hotel. And I don't want to cause anyone any problems, so I'll just say if you're going to Philadelphia, I wouldn't stay at a place that rhymes with Schmilton at Men's Fanding.
Although the location is nice.
You're in an excellent location.
Yeah.
Walkable to many fine restaurants.
That's true.
Bistro Romano, I will give them a shout out because they were extremely nice to us and great food.
Yep. Just a short jaunt to the Liberty Bell.
You can
Congressional Hall, Constitutional Hall, one of those halls.
If you're tough enough, you can make it to the Rocky Steps, but that's a hall now.
Yeah.
Not like a hall like a Congressional Hall, Constitutional Hall, but like
whatever.
HAUL
one of those
hall.
halls.
Yeah. This concludes Travel Corner.
Now let me tell you about Fort Worth. Well, Adam, what I realized, and maybe we've talked about this, I can't remember. I think the reason it seemed so long, obviously the Tar Heels played a long time, which was great. But normally ACC tournament is in like Greensboro or Charlotte.
Yep.
And the Tar Heels normally in the first round or two are in Greensboro, Charlotte, or somewhere comparable.
Right.
This was New York to Fort Worth to Philadelphia to New Orleans. I mean, we went sea to shining sea.
We had this discussion at my house this week. How would you rank the 4 stops?
In what classification?
You wanting to return there again in your life? Do you need to think about it while I tell you what mine are?
Yeah, I do need,
Okay. My number 1 seed is Fort Worth.
I got to tell you, I liked Fort Worth. As we talked about, I'm not entirely sure whatever happens there.
Right.
I'm not sure, but the folks were very nice. I liked our hotel. Everything was relatively accessible. Lots of parking, which I respect.
Right.
Were we there a really long time? Felt like we were.
We were at all these places
Yeah.
a really long time. I liked the stockyards. I liked that when we were eating dinner, someone rode by on horseback, and it wasn't like a window dressing, like that person was using the horse for transportation.
I like Fort Worth.
Fort Worth's my number 1 seed. Now, here's where things got a little controversial in my house. My number 2 seed would be Philadelphia.
I like Philadelphia. I've lived in Philadelphia for a couple years.
I've heard. I think it's getting downgraded at my house because of the hotel
Well, I can understand that.
and the fact that it was cold. But I can't hold that against Philadelphia. Now, did it snow that day we went to get a cheesesteak? Yes.
Oh, boy, it did. It was cold.
Cold, windy, and snowy. But we got a delicious sandwich, which was enormous.
Yeah.
And we had a prime parking space so we could wait in the warmth.
Can I tell you something about cheesesteaks, Adam? I kind of think they're overrated.
It's just something you have to do.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like it's just something that you do. But I don't feel like they're incredible.
No.
I even tried the chicken one, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. My number 3 seed would be Brooklyn.
Wow, you're that low on New Orleans.
New Orleans is dirty and trashy.
Whoa,
and
gracious.
the people weren't that nice.
Yeah, that's Adam saying that. If you ever want a cameo and you're from New Orleans, you know who to contact.
Now, what I will say is, all that being said, and in fact, because of some of those things, I kind of do like having the Final Four there.
Yeah, it's a good spot for the Final Four. It really is.
But my rankings are based on would I want to go back there for a non-Tar Heel sports trip. I would not want to go back to New
Well,
Orleans.
there's only one reason to go to New Orleans for a trip, and that's
The Tar Heels are in the Final Four.
well, I mean, outside of the Tar Heels, and that's the party, right? I mean, so if
That's my everyday job.
yeah, I understand. So if you're not, look, Adam, if you're not down to party, don't get on this. Don't get on this trip with me, brother.
Well, I think that if I was going to, do a hurricane, I think I'd be more likely to go to Nashville than I would to New Orleans.
See, I've only been to Nashville once, and that was for the Music City Bowl. So it wasn't it wasn't any trip that I could experience things.
And that all turned out fine.
Yeah, just had to dodge the beer cans and bricks that the Tennessee fans were throwing. No problem there. T.J. Yates, you crafty son of a gun.
I could easily see spending a weekend in Fort Worth. Probably not in the summer when I'm guessing it's incredibly hot.
But Adam, let me again ask you, what are you going to do?
I'm going to go to the stockyards. I'm going to go walk around Dickies Arena and enjoy the wide hallways.
Did you see the gymnastics national championships were in Dickies Arena?
They should be there every year.
I said, I totally fanboyed out when I realized. I was like, oh, that's Dickies Arena. I was like, I know that's the side that the Tar Heels were on. I was so excited.
I bet they have no trouble getting those apparatus in the loading dock because it's extra wide.
I do respect Dickies Arena. I respect your pants. Are they custom fit? Don't know. And I respect your arena.
Dickies Arena, oddly, really has nothing around it other than the swine building.
Yeah.
But what else do you need?
Right. There's that one restaurant across the street that was always hopping.
Yeah. I would go to Philadelphia for a weekend trip.
For some reason, I really respect Philadelphia.
I tell you what I like about Philadelphia. Those people are hardworking.
Yeah, they are.
They're real people. They're not out doing fake stuff for Instagram.
Yeah.
They live in a city, but it's not like for show. It's because they live and work there.
Yeah.
I respect Philadelphia. They're gritty.
Yeah, they are.
Now, do they occasionally throw things at sporting events and boo Santa Claus? Yes.
That's all right.
But I've never seen them do that.
No, they haven't booed you.
They've always been very kind to us. The Uber drivers will deliver you right to the media entrance with no qualms whatsoever.
Yeah.
Housekeeping is a bit of an issue in your hotel stay.
Yeah. I think on the New York side of things, it's because we had to get on the subway. I think if we didn't have to do the subway, because where our hotel was to the arena, like, it just didn't make any sense to do anything else. So I think if you were playing at Madison Square Garden, for example, I think you would like it more. And I'm not a New York City proponent. But I just think the circumstances of that stay make it a little less pleasant than it maybe would be otherwise.
That could be right. The subway is a definite.
That's the biggest negative. But
isn't that part of, like, that's part of New York? How else do you get somewhere? You can't drive a car.
I don't know.
And it was too far to walk, and it probably is snowing, which it also did while we were there. 2 out of 4 of these trips it snowed.
Yeah. Next episode, we'll just power rank every city we've ever been to. Adam, I already know what Adam's number 1 is. Greenville. We know that. So just stay on the edge of your seat for that one. Okay.
All right, Jones, my number 94, Syracuse. 93 was Hades.
All right. Okay. Near the top of the list. Pinehurst. There's more to the Pinehurst Resort than Donald Ross's masterpiece. Pinehurst number 2. Gil Hanse's stunning redesign of Pinehurst number 4. You can grab a couple wedges, take the loop on the cradle, the fun short course, unwind at the Pinehurst Brewing Company for craft beers, classic North Carolina barbecue just down the hill from the fully renovated Manor Inn, where there is absolutely no housekeeping issues there. Don't you worry about that.
Pinehurst trying to get in playing golf with Armando Baycott.
Saw that. Armando just let out. By the way, Adam, know what happens on Monday? Carolina Kids Classic, baby.
Oh,
Time for me to revisit. You know I'm hitting it in the water on that hole this year. You know I am.
well, I think that answers the question of whether there will be a Tuesday pod. We'll need a Monday post-event wrap-up.
There's never been a better time in the cradle of American golf than right now. Go to pinehurst.com, plan your visit.
Have you played with Armando?
I haven't. I
feel like you should.
I'd love to play with Armando. I saw he and Brady Manick they're trying to get down to Pinehurst. I bet I know somebody who would be very interested in making that happen.
I happened to be sitting with Brady Manick when he got that news that Pinehurst was interested in that, and he goes, "Look, this might be a dumb question. What exactly is Pinehurst, and is it a big deal?" Yes.
Yeah.
It's the cradle of American golf.
Yeah. Grab your wedges, go to the loop, the short course.
I told him about the short course because he was like, well, I actually
cradle.
don't play golf.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you don't have to. You can go play the cradle.
I'm ready. I bet it would be hard. I have no idea if Armando's good at golf or not. No clue. But
I have heard he is not.
well, it's hard when you're that big. I've seen Eric Montross. We've talked about this.
That's
Big
why
grits.
I have trouble with it.
Yeah. Adam can't uncurl this masterpiece and let the torque fly.
Yeah. When all these quick twitch fibers get all curled up.
So, Adam, we have, despite what we have provided for the first 13 minutes, a very intellectual show today. After we did this interview, felt like I knew more about some important topics than before we did it. Right?
And topics that we had recently said we should try to learn more about.
Nate Wood from Carolina's Compliance Department joining us. And you may be like, compliance. Or you might be a fan of Flight of the Navigator.
Compliance.
Say compliant. But we talk all about NIL. And I got to tell you, I found it extraordinarily interesting. I think this is a great interview. I think, and Nate does a really good job of explaining a difficult topic in ways that even Adam and I could understand it. So you're in good shape. So I think you will really enjoy that coming up in just a few.
and we tried to ask some questions that we feel like a lot of people have so that we can
Right.
all understand it better together.
So that's coming up in just a little bit. Adam has a list. We got a couple story times that we're going to go through and more. We thought about doing a 5-second challenge, but we'll bring that back later. We'll bring that back later.
But I've studied.
I know you have. I don't want to give Adam any false glory on this 5-second challenge because I think he's been sneaking a look at the questions. So we're not gonna go over that today.
I remember that 1946 season.
Adam, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time just because there's not a ton of stuff going on. Obviously, still waiting on Caleb Love's decision from the basketball standpoint, which will be relevant. Football just had a big press conference earlier this week, kind of wrapping up spring ball, and but not a ton going on in those two avenues at the moment. Spring sports getting close to the end of their season, several of them getting into ACC tournament play or postseason play with NCAA stuff coming soon. So we're getting to that time of the year, but I don't know if we have a ton of huge newsworthy things since the last time we talked.
Fairly status quo. Men's golf headed to the ACC championships this weekend in Florida. A lot of former pod guests involved there. And all those spring sports will be in that ACC mode here over the next few weeks.
So, Adam, unless there's something of high importance that you can think of, I say we get right to our interview, and then we'll have all our normal shenanigans on the back half of the show.
I agree.
Okay. So, again, this is Nate Wood, Carolina Compliance Office. We're talking all about NIL, hoping to help you and help us, honestly, better understand what's going on. If it tells you anything about how well it went, by the end, we were asking Nate if we could do a recurring visit with him, and I think he's okay with that.
We didn't even wait for him to get home before we texted him to
Yeah.
ask if we could go on another date.
Be like, thinking about you right now. Really great time earlier.
I'm going to walk you to the door of Pod World headquarters and ask you to come back over again soon.
So let's get to that. We'll come back and, like I said, a bunch of other stuff, including some stories, Adam's list, etc. Still to come on the Carolina Insider.
We told you a few episodes back that we needed to have someone on who actually understands NIL and can explain every detail of
That's why
every
I'm here,
single
Adam.
thing
That's why I'm here.
about NIL that exists in the world today and will never change ever after today. So to start off our 18-hour series on explaining NIL, we have Nate Wood from Carolina Compliance. Nate, thanks so much for giving us some time.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
What in the world is happening with college athletics and NIL, and how much of your day is spent on this topic?
Yeah, well, I think, generally speaking, what's happening in college athletics is it's been turned on its head. For 80 years since the NCAA's existence, we have been beaten over the head that student athletes cannot profit from their name, image, and likeness. They cannot profit from their name, image, and likeness. We've been, told this repeatedly. And, overnight, essentially, on July 1st, the NCAA revoked that rule and eliminated that rule, or at least suspended it. And since then, student athletes have been able to profit from their name, image, and likeness. And what that has done by just a simple rule change has now changed the game in college athletics, especially at the football FBS level and the basketball level. As far as how much time we spend on it, so we meet every morning. So we have an NIL team that meets every morning, senior staff members, people involved in direct connections with student athletes on NIL. We meet every morning, usually between an hour, hour and a half. We talk about all the things that are going on nationally, what's happening here locally, how we can better serve our student athletes, and what we can do to better promote NIL within the UNC community.
So, Nate, how is Carolina trying to serve its student athletes in this space, and how is it trying to educate them on what's okay and what's not okay?
Yeah, so we started pretty aggressively going through education. So we partnered with Influencer, we partnered with Compass, a couple different platforms that offered education specific to NIL. So IP, licensing, all of those kinds of things. Then we have, Kara Canizaro, she's in our office as well. She's part of the NIL team. She's developed a series of educational modules. We've done them once a month in the fall and once a month here in the spring to provide our student athletes with education specific to NIL. So the first one we did was contracts. So we had a contracts 101 where we brought in some attorneys from locally and here in North Carolina to talk about what should be in a contract, good things to look for, bad things to look for. And that's really a basic knowledge that our student athletes need when they enter these new NIL contracts. We did one on IP and what is intellectual property and to be able to identify that, both the student athletes own intellectual property as well as UNC's and any other brands. We did one on taxes. Obviously, taxes is a big thing. I mean, that was something that we knew was going to be a consequence of NIL, and we tried to prepare our student athletes for. But, having just passed tax day, I'm not sure there's a lot of student athletes that were really prepared for kind of the consequences. So we provided some education related to taxes. And then we also did like a graphic design education module where we presented our student athletes with ways that they themselves can create graphics and do videos and editing and all that stuff so that they can be their own brand ambassadors and do this themselves. On top of all that, again, the UNC NIL team developed a 24-hour kind of access service through an email where we can provide student athletes with education, advice, counseling on all of these different topics. We can review contracts for student athletes. We've partnered with the UNC Law School and the NC Bar Association, Carolina Student Legal Services, to provide our student athletes with free legal services. So anytime the student athlete has a question, legal question, contract question, we can give them over to the Carolina Student Legal Services and provide them that free legal services, which is just awesome. And we partnered with Chamber of Commerce here in Chapel Hill so that our businesses know, hey, look, our student athletes are open for business. They can do this and engage this. And a lot of them have engaged with our student athletes, which is great. But some of them are still kind of on the fence because they're just not sure how they fit in. And we're trying to reach them as much as we can so that we can open up those markets and make sure our student athletes are benefiting.
But what you cannot do, if I'm correct, is actually set up these arrangements for the student athletes. Why not? And might we get to that point one day now that we've seen how the first 9 months have gone?
Yeah. So to answer, I think yes and yes. I mean, or no and yes, maybe. So we are prohibited from directly negotiating deals. Now, a lot of that can be up for interpretation, and a lot of it has to do with state laws. So the NCAA has not come out and said, UNC, you may not negotiate on behalf of a student athlete. However, we do know that there are implications if we do, and it's not necessarily the direct negotiation that would be a violation, but it would be perhaps providing an extra benefit to a student athlete in the form of that you would otherwise have to pay an attorney or an agent to negotiate on your behalf, and now you're getting that service for free. So there could be an issue of extra benefits there. There's also an equity issue. So if we send Mac Brown to negotiate contracts on behalf of our football players, we have to make sure that we do an equal effort for female student athletes. And so there's an issue there of whether or not we can provide that equity in that space if we do go down that path. So there are some barriers to whether or not we can negotiate. And to be honest, it's a little bit like being on thin ice, meaning, some schools go out there. So the first school that went out there was BYU and their Built Bar deal. And everybody thought at the time, no way that could happen. And the NCAA has inquired, but so far that deal is still going on. And so they ventured out in the ice a little further. And so we knew it was safe to go there. And then somebody else ventured out a little more. Miami did something, right? And then, collectives started happening. Florida had their collective. And so that was a little farther out on the ice, and the ice got a little thicker. And so every day we see these things and we kind of reevaluate where we are. And so right now we're still in a place where we're very cautious about the actual negotiation. But there is no question that our, coaches, and from an NCAA perspective even, that we could, if we wanted to, endorse, promote our student athletes and their activities and what they're doing. But again, there's some other issues with equity and those kinds of things that come into play. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And the last kind of piece of it is state law. For a good example of this is in Illinois, they passed a state law that specifically allows their student athletes to sell their current Illinois gear. Now that is a violation, right? NCAA, that rule is still on the books. But interestingly, what the NCAA has said is as long as you comply with your state law, it will not be an NCAA violation. So Illinois is complying with their state law, And so they can't then be found guilty of an NCAA violation. So their state law is very specific to that allows them to do that. And so part of it is, what does your state law allow? Some states have restrictive laws, some don't have any. We have an executive order here, which kind of mirrors what the NCAA does. So it doesn't necessarily restrict us, but it also doesn't give us explicit right to sell our gear, our student athletes to sell our gear. So we got to be cautious in that area. So it's very determinative on what, your state law actually says.
What has been the response from the student athletes? And I know that's a broad question because I'm sure there's differences there.
Yep.
But in general, what has their response been? Has it been positive? Has it been confused? What have you seen mostly from that group?
Yeah, I would say mostly, all positive. I don't think so far, and knock on wood, that
Sure.
We've seen any negative come from it. But I would say it's really on the margins, meaning the majority of our athletes are just not engaged in NIL in the way that you would think they would be. Our athletes are not only great academic students, but they're also great athletes, and that takes a lot of time. And so the NIL and being a good brand ambassador for a company also takes a lot of time. And so I think the majority of our students are consumed with the academics and the athletic pursuits, that the NIL is almost secondary. And if it comes along, sure, but it's not my focus. We do have a small group of student athletes who are very active in the NIL space. Most of those are the ones you would imagine being active in the NIL space, the ones that have marketability, whether it be the basketball team or star football players or a star women's soccer player, those kinds of athletes. Deja Kelly in women's basketball, she's a rising star in the NIL world as well as the basketball world. So you do see that small group that are really the high earners, high users of the NIL. And then you have this kind of middle group who are maybe not those high profile student athletes, but they're very ambitious and they want to be able to take advantage of this. And so they're doing it in different ways. So maybe, early on, we had some student athletes that were really interested in making money playing video games, which at the time I didn't really know you could make money playing video games, but apparently you can. And but before this NIL rule, they were still prohibited from doing that, and now they can do that. And so they've maybe not the most high profile student athlete, and maybe somebody you've never heard of, but they're making a good amount of money doing what they're what they like to do now with the new rules. And so it's been interesting to see, and I think it'll only grow as time goes on.
What's low hanging fruit for student athletes in terms of NIL? Like even the ones who are not very ambitious, as you said, or in some of those categories you named. What should they be doing that they now have the right to do that maybe some people don't know they should be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's 3 areas that are real easy for student athletes to get engaged in NIL, and it's not a huge effort on their part. One is camps and clinics. So now they could have always done camps and clinics. They just couldn't use their name, image, and likeness to promote it, and now they can. And somebody like Jamie Ortega in women's lacrosse, like she's gonna clean up because her name has cachet with it. And so I think there are certain athletes who are going to be able to clean up in that area who wouldn't otherwise engage in NIL. The second one is private lessons. So again, an area where student athletes were always able to do private lessons, but now you have star tennis player being able to use their name to say, hey, come get a private lesson with me and be able to do that, which I think is great. And it, fits within, what they do on a day-to-day basis. It's not outside of what they do or extra to what they do. And then I think the third area, which is the really low-hanging fruit, is autograph and public appearances. I think, men's basketball is a great example of this, where, just sitting down for an hour and signing autographs, it's great from a community engagement aspect. It's great from an NIL aspect. It's great from a monetary aspect and from a time aspect. It might only take an hour of their time, but they get a pretty good return on it. And again, it's a great community engagement opportunity and just really builds that athlete's brand, which is great. So I think those are the 3 areas.
Some of this, it's so silly to me. Some of it seems like, of course this should happen. Like, of course Jamie Ortega should be able to say, hey, come get a lesson from me, Jamie Ortega. And then she can... That all makes sense. The autographs, all that makes sense. Now, there's a whole other aspect of this that it seems like there aren't a lot of rules on right now, or maybe isn't exactly what everybody wants it to be. Where do there, in your opinion, need to be some more regulations? Where do some more rules need to come into play?
Yeah. Another great question. So, I think in the early onset, before July 1st came, the NCAA was kicking around a couple different ideas for how to regulate it. There was a bunch of reasons why they didn't go down that path, mostly legal reasons. But one of the kind of regulations that they were going to put in place, which would have contained it, was market value. And basically ensuring that each NIL deal was within the market value for that deal, so that if the highest, if Aaron Rodgers, if he gets $10 million for a Coca-Cola deal, our fifth string lineman shouldn't be making that much money, right?
Sure.
The market wouldn't weigh for that, or wouldn't support that. So that was an idea early on that the NCAA had, and they had eliminated that on July 1st. They said, nope, they eliminated a lot of the requirements they were going to do. And so that would have been a requirement that would have tried to keep it in check and say, look, you can't pay your fifth string lineman $100,000 for a tweet, right? The market just doesn't sustain that. But without that market value, there's nothing preventing somebody from paying an athlete $100,000 for a single tweet. Who's to say that person can't buy that, right? And this is the example I always give. If I am a super fan, right, and Armando Bacot is my favorite player all time in UNC history, and I love him, how much value does he have if I want him to come to my birthday, right? You might, right, Adam? How much would you pay? You might pay $1,000 to have Armando, right?
Sure, yeah.
Jones might pay $2,000, but
That sounds
somebody,
right, yeah.
but somebody might pay $100,000 because that's how much it's worth it to them to have Armando come. So that becomes a very difficult thing to monitor. But without it, there's no test. There's no way to keep anybody from getting as much as they want for as soon as they make a tweet, make an appearance, or sign an autograph. So that would be a regulation where, again, it's hard. There's legal barriers to having that, but that would at least contain it some.
Are people in college athletics who have been asked to bear this load and figure this out, are they equipped to figure this out and bear this load?
I would hope we are. I think we are.
And I know you are, but I just mean in general.
No.
I just mean like across the board.
Yeah, I would say not a lot. I mean, it depends. I mean, I think some schools have taken the approach of this is a external kind of venture, and they've given it to external communications to manage. Some people have given it to compliance, and that's how it falls into us. And some have gone another route and just created a whole new position and new department. Louisville's one of these schools. They took one of their compliance people and made them an NIL, associate AD, just to do NIL stuff. And so I think schools have taken different approaches. I think if you look at the big schools, that are, peer institutions, they've all taken a very serious approach, been all hands on. Are people equipped with this? No. I mean, we're 9 months in. This is, like I said, for 80 years, we've been the opposite. And then all of a sudden this brand new market came up. And so we're doing our best. I mean,
Sure.
We are, walking around in a dark room trying to feel our way through. But every day gets a little better. Every day that ice gets a little thicker out on the water, and we're able to go venture out a little more. And like I said, I think we're doing the best we can with the information we have, but it does change every day. And so I think that's the part. If you're not staying on top of it, then you're behind. And I think that's the struggle that a lot of schools have, is staying on top of it.
From a Carolina fan's perspective, if I decide I want to buy something that supports NIL for these players, and I'm trying to do it above board and do it the right way, how do I know which things I should be participating in that aren't some shyster on the sidewalk?
Shyster.
But that actually they do have a tangible benefit for these people that I'm trying to support? Is there any sort of regulation about that?
Yeah, right now, no. And we were working to that solution. And that raises a point that, we've been talking about for a while, which is, and something, honestly, we talk about in licensing, which is brand confusion, right? And so trying to navigate that space of, hey, is this really Armando Bacot that's selling this T-shirt, or is it somebody trying to profit from Armando Bacot? And I think what we're trying to do is partner. Right now, we're partnering with Influencer to make a marketplace so that all of our student athletes can have a single location for all of their wares, whether it's shirts, autographs, appearance fees, whatever it may be. And they can basically have one place for all of it. So all all of the announcements, everything would be on this one marketplace. And then if you had a question of whether or not this is Armando's, if it wasn't there, then it's not legit, right? But if it is there, then we know it's Armando's. They've done this with a couple other schools, and so we're developing that right now. And it's going to be a great experience for our student athletes and for our fans and for, people of Chapel Hill to be able to go and know, hey, I want to buy Armando's shirt, but I want to make sure it's Armando shirt, or the Brady Manick shirt that he was selling. Although I will say the best shirt out there, and this isn't a plug, but the best shirt out there is Storm Duck shirt.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's exactly the way you would think it would look. I'll just say that.
maybe we need to get on influencer. Maybe we can finally get our pod shirts at that point in time. Maybe that's where we're behind.
That's many years down the road, gents.
We've only been doing it for 6. Why would we?
Yeah, there's no reason. Look, this all happened in 9 months.
Yeah.
The pod's been happening for 6 years. We're not quite there yet.
No, not yet. Nate, is this good or is this not good? Is it good that this has happened?
Yes. Overall, I think yes. Student athletes, their ability, to your point, right, which you made earlier, is Jamie Ortega should have always been able to use her name to do lessons and camps and clinics. There was no reason really to restrict her from doing that. It didn't make a lot of sense then. It doesn't make a lot of sense now. So that is certainly a positive. I think where it's going right now and where we see it going is toward the negative, because what we see is exploding contracts within NIL, things that are not sustainable. I can't, not that I wish ill will on anybody, but the first time that one of these NIL deals for a freshman blows up, and that freshman QB who you just paid $1 million for throws 5 interceptions in the first game and loses to an FCS team, the pressure, not only on the coach, do I bench him and waste my donors' money that they just invested, or do I keep playing and lose and potentially lose my job, right? So those are the kind of interesting negative consequences of NIL that could go. But I think majority of it is positive. Brady Manick's shirt was amazing, right? Armando's got great business experience already before he goes to the NBA, which is an amazing thing for him. Jamie Ortega is being able to make money, while she's here at school. I think all of those things are positives. There's a couple negatives, but that doesn't outweigh the positive.
Is there anything right now in the NIL space that is illegal that would get you in trouble?
Yes. So, a group of donors paying a student athlete prospect for attending the university. We see this. And there's ways that the contracts can be written. But if a donor was saying, hey, I'll give you this NIL deal if you come to this school, that is strictly prohibited. So you can't do that. We, as an institution, we also can't, like we talked about, I can't negotiate a deal on behalf. That would be considered an extra benefit. The last thing that's really impermissible is just providing money. Right? Everyone's like, oh, I can just give kids money now. And that's still against the rule. There's still an extra benefit legislation. There has to be a quid pro quo. Now, the bar for that quid pro quo is very low, right? It's a mouse hurdle, right? It's not a regular hurdle. It's a mouse hurdle because I can pay you.
It's one you can get over, Adam.
I can pay you for a tweet, right? You tweet about my business one time, and I can pay you whatever I think that is worth to me. Whatever that is, there is no market value. So, there's not much that you can't do, but there is still requirements. There's still very minimal requirements, and if you don't miss those, or if you miss those, you could get in trouble.
But what you just said is completely impermissible. Is what's happening. I mean, we have coaches out in college football world who are saying that is occurring as a factual statement that they know it's happening. And nothing's being done. There's no reason to believe that's going to stop.
Agreed. I agree. I think this is the problem that we've always kind of had in college athletics, right? Bagmen, going back to Bagman, where, I'll date myself here, but blue chips, right? Getting the tractor in your front lawn to come to the school, right? That's always been the case. And you've always had to go after and tie the strings together and go from, the bag man to the donor to the coach and the conversation and try to find a link all the way back through, which was always difficult. NIL is just another avenue for that. So it's still the same difficulty of, okay, if I'm trying to figure out if Nick Saban told this donor to give this kid money, I got to find written documentation of that. That's very difficult. If Nick Saban picks up the phone, tells his donor, I want X recruit and you should pay him through your company, and it's a phone conversation that's not recorded, does that happen, right? Nobody knows. There's no way to do it. So, and that was no different than in the, before NIL with the bagman and saying, hey, I want this recruit, go drop off $50,000. If there's no evidence of it, it's hard to prove. And so coaches will say this is happening across the country, and it might very well be, but you have to be able to prove it. So I think that is a difficult thing. And the NCAA has a difficult time catching those individuals.
You're the first person I've ever talked to from compliance who I didn't feel like was looking for ways to say no to something. What do you like about this new world of college sports where sometimes you get to look for ways to say yes?
It's exciting. So I will tell you, one of the very first things that we realize quickly is that, and a lot of times the reputation of compliance is we're the office of no. And we've tried to do a good job of breaking that culture here and trying to be the office of yes. Let's try to work through the rules to find a solution. And it might not be exactly what you get, but we're going to try as close as we can to get you there. And we've just tried that, be customer service orientated. NIL is no different than that, except it just so happens we get to say yes a lot more. And so it's exciting for us. And I think, the perception hopefully on campus has turned the tide a little bit and said, hey, look, we're here to help. And we've tried to make that, communicate that to our student athletes and say, look, we're not here to ding you on a violation. Like, we just want to help you. We don't want you guys to, sign a bad contract or sign with a bad agent. We want to be able to vet that with you and work with you. No different than making sure that our athletic trainers are providing you the best medical help and we're getting the surgery done by the best doctor in the country. We're going to help and make sure that you get the best advice on your contract. And so it's been exciting for us. It's kind of turned over a new leaf. And yeah, I would say it's, again, nothing but positive.
What's next? What do you think needs to happen you said it's a day-by-day kind of deal. What do you think is the next thing in the next month or two that you think is needed and you hope is coming?
Yeah, I think what I would like to see and what I think is coming is a lot of the big boys, and I mean that by the big companies getting involved. So right now we've seen a lot of low-level companies, local companies get involved. We saw one attempt at the very beginning of NIL, and I would imagine you guys saw this, the DJ Uglia commercial with Dr. Pepper at the beginning. That commercial was quickly pulled off the air after Clemson went like 3-2 in the beginning of the year. And then nobody else really stepped into that, right? You didn't see any really big national commercials for college athletes because I think that kind of scared people off. They're like, oh, we made this big investment. It didn't turn out. The guy wasn't the star we thought we were. And we rolled out this huge campaign and it didn't work. And so there's a little trepidation, I think, in the market. But now that we're almost a year into it, I think companies have taken stock of it and seen it, and they're going to start diving into this. So I'm talking Nike, Adidas, the big companies in this, starting doing deals with individual athletes. And you see this with Paige Buchers at Connecticut. She's already gotten a couple really big deals from big companies, but I think you're going to see more of that where they were, on the sidelines kind of waiting to see what happened. But I think you are going to see more of that because there is value for them in those young players and getting that young audience who maybe has a bigger Twitter following or Instagram following than they do and can drive more business that way. And for them, it's a lower entry fee, right? I can pay a men's college basketball player probably lower than an NBA player for my advertising. So it's lower cost to them, but maybe a greater bang for their buck kind of thing. The other area I think we're going to see growth in, and we've already seen it, is collectives. So I think, by the time this is all said and done, every school will have a collective, one for football, one for basketball, maybe one for the rest of the sports. And you're just going to see more of those. And those are going to be, the way I would describe it is a shadow GM. Right. So general managers typically decide, salaries and negotiate contracts and salaries. Right. These collectives are kind of playing that role right now where they're deciding who's worth the money. Right. Where does the money go? What players are going to be able to contribute on the field, and what players do I want to make sure they stay here and don't go to the transfer portal. And so these collectives are going to be these shadow GMs. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. And the way that plays out, I think, will be interesting. the dynamic between the collectives and then the coach.
Okay, I have two more things. Can you, and I know can you like give us a easy to understand what is a collective? Like just like what it like the fact of what it actually is.
Yeah, nope. On its most basic level, a collective is a group of donors for a particular institution that pool their money together to provide NIL deals to student athletes. That's all it is. And so, there's collectives here at UNC. There's collectives at Florida. I mean, a lot of the big schools already have collectives. It's essentially a group of donors, very, not unsimilar to our Rams Club, right? Our Rams Club is essentially a group of donors that have gotten together to, pool their money to support our athletic department. And a collective is no different than that. But they usually have a specific purpose and a specific team they're supporting, and it's specific to NIL deals. But that's what they are. And there's a lot of issues that go on with those collectives, and we work with our collectives. Some schools, are arm's length, and we are certainly arm's length with them, but we want to help them, right? We want to make sure that we navigate this space for them. If they go out there and they're in the room blind, trying to feel their way, that's not great. We want to provide them the same customer service. And so we've, worked with our collectives here on campus, and I'm sure that's the way a lot of schools are working with their collectives, just to make sure, hey, look, here's the lines you got to follow. Don't cross these lines, and let's make sure we're all, working together for the same purpose.
What would you say to a Tar Heel fan who is sitting there going, this isn't how it was when I grew up. Kenny Smith never was doing this, or Billy Cunningham was never doing this. What would you say to that Tar Heel fan?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would say, the world changes. It always does. It never stops changing. This is just another change that we have to, grow up with and adapt to. And that, Armando Bacot earning money takes nothing away from Kenny Smith, right? I mean, all the accomplishments that were done are still there. Armando making money does not hurt Kenny Smith, does not hurt anybody. And so, yes, I understand that the rules weren't like that for you when you were there, but this is the way it is, and we're changing it now. So I get maybe that there's some, whether it's sour grapes or, uneasiness about it. But this is just, the way it is now. And again, we're just going to support our student athletes like we always would.
How do you answer the question when someone wants to know where's my money better spent? Is it better spent with the Rams Club, or is it better spent in a collective, or is it better spent making an individual deal with one person?
Yeah, I mean, this is a shameless plug, but I will say the Rams Club is where I would put my money. And the reason is because the work that the Rams Club does provides scholarships to our students who otherwise wouldn't have them. And that scholarship provides an education that they otherwise wouldn't have. And so that is the importance. And that, I think, is where, where our push is as an athletic department. And that's, our mission is to provide education. And so I would say that is where I would want to put my money. I think from there, it's a personal decision. Do I want to support the team generally, or do I want to support a student athlete that I really care about and I'm really in tune with? And I think that's going to be an individual choice for each person is, do I want to support the football team? Do I want to support the basketball team, or do I want to support Jamie Ortega? And that's going to be a personal decision for those fans. But yeah, I mean, shamelessly, I would say Rams Club first, and then personal choice after that.
Okay, Nate, can I just say that we need to do this again in a couple of months?
I agree.
I really think we should make this like a recurring thing every 3 or 6 months or something. Let's just sit down and talk, and you're so much better at telling everyone this than we are. We don't know what we're talking about. So can we just get a commitment from you right now? Adam will pay you $1,000 for an NIL deal for you to say that you'll come on here on a repeating basis.
Done and done.
Yes, all right. Nate, thank you.
You got it.
Good stuff. Really hope that you felt like you took something away from that, because that is... It's just, Adam, it's a hard topic to understand. Nate did a great job. And I think also some of that discussion shows you the complexity, because there's some things in there that, of course, it makes sense. And you sit there and you go, how in the world has this not been happening? But then there's these cracks that already people are starting to look through of going, well, wait a second, this isn't technically illegal. And so it's a handful right now.
Even in less than 12 months, I think it's already turned into something that no one realized it might. So who's to say what these next 12 months are going to be? Nate knows, though.
Yeah. I thought his point about market value was a really good one because I think it's exactly right. Like that is something that in theory could help, but it's also hard to set without the market setting itself. But you're in this gray area where people, I think, would inflate the market for some things artificially. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's different than pro endorsements because in college marketability, you have the added layer of, are you actually persuading that person to come to school here?
Right.
I mean, nobody ever doesn't sign with the New York Knicks because they didn't get some deal. But that happens in college sports and will continue to happen unless some sort of guidelines are put in place.
So anyway, great stuff. Continuing conversation, and we meant it. We hope to have Nate on in at least some kind of regular interval to kind of keep us up to date.
Until he hears the first 15 minutes of this podcast and then is like, I'm not sure I want to go back on there.
They were ranking cities.
Fort Worth above New Orleans? I can't agree with that.
Texting while driving, something we all can agree is a bad idea. Takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds at highway speeds. That's like driving the length of a football field with your eyes closed. And the trusted choice independent insurance agents of North Carolina want you to stay safe behind the wheel. Put down your phone while you're driving. Let's have a hands-free NC. To learn more, find an agent near you. TrustedChoice.com/GoHeels. Adam, that leads us to our UNC Health Champions Watch. As we alluded to, a lot of action from the spring sports occurring. It's brought to you by UNC Health, our look at what to keep your eyes open for. Dedicated to caring for champions of all kinds and to help keep you in the game and at your very best. Their lineup can be found at unchealthcare.org/sports, unchealthcare.org/sports.
We mentioned men's golf is in the ACC championships this weekend in Florida. Men's tennis and women's tennis also have their ACC championships this weekend. Women's tennis lost to Duke, which is also a top 3 or so program in the country. So the women's tennis championships got a little bit of intrigue there. NC State's also top 5 team. So some really good teams in that event. Baseball is...
Adam means they lost in the regular season, not in the tournament already.
Yeah. Right. Potentially you could see another Tar Heel Blue Devil match in the championship. Baseball's going to Virginia. That's a big series for baseball as they try to get back on track. But, man, it's tough in the ACC because everybody's good. Virginia's another ranked team. Carolina did get a good midweek win this week over Campbell, a team like you might think, Campbell. Campbell's pretty good. And that was a good win for the Heels at Boshemer.
Adam, why don't we head to your list?
What's on the top of Adam's list? Brought to you by Top of the Hill, where Tar Heels come to celebrate.
In the spirit of our conversation with Nate,
yes,
let's start with a little NIL commentary from this week that I think just gives you an idea of where things are standing right now. The first is a quote from Nick Saban to the Associated Press. NIL creates a situation where you can basically buy players. You can do it in recruiting. I don't know if that's what we want college football to be. That's Nick Saban saying that. I mean, do you think Nick Saban knows what he's talking about with regard to college football and college football recruiting? And then there was a similar quote from the Clemson, the collective that they've got going, in which they basically put out, and Jones and I had sort of laughed about this, but this is actually what they put out. Gone are the days of showing up to watch the best athletes compete on their home turf. Going forward, the Clemson faithful need to get involved by helping the name of this collective grow its ability to attract the best players while complementing our cultural values. Gone are the days, Jones, when you could just come cheer on the team. Now you need to help purchase the services of the players. That's basically what that says.
Sure is what that sounds like. Yes.
I mean, it's not even under the table anymore. It's on top of the table.
Well, and you may have this on your list. Jay Wright retiring from Villanova. Of course, terrific coach, 2-time national champion, been to 4 Final Fours, 3 of which Carolina were there, by the way. I think that's weird. But anyway. So, I mean, Adam, I was surprised when I saw Jay Wright was retiring. And 60 years old, so, you know, not 30 years old, but also you would think, probably 5 or 10 more years for Jay Wright. One would think, and I'm guessing Jay Wright could tell Villanova how long he wanted to stay there at this point. But so he retired, and a tweet from Aaron Torres, Adam, who, let's see, Aaron Torres. He's got a check mark, so he's probably, I mean, Adam doesn't have a check mark.
That's true.
I don't have a check mark. Well, looks maybe Fox Sports Radio, some other stuff. So anyway, quoting Mr. Torres. First and only reaction to Jay Wright news. The NIL transfer portal have changed college sports forever. It's a never-ending job. Good coaches will retire early. Some will go to the pros and let the GM deal with free agency and player payments. This is the new norm. Bottom line, the current model is not sustainable. I know that will be unpopular on Twitter, but ask anyone in college sports. It's true. There need to be changes. No one is saying NIL or the one-time transfer portal is an awful thing, but even the NFL and the NBA have a salary cap. There is no pro sport on the planet where every player is a free agent every year and really every day of every year. And, of course, he's getting roasted because he said this on Twitter where you're not allowed to say anything other than everyone should make $1 million every second. But I agree. And I don't know if that had to do with Jay Wright. I don't know about that part. I do know that it is a rapidly changing landscape and an enormously different one than what we are used to. And that is going to, I think, prompt some changes, like maybe Jay Wright going, you know what, I kind of wanted to do this for another 5 years, but now I don't. And I don't know if that was part of what and to me, that was a little bit more about the transfer portal than it is about the NIL, but I think those two things are similar to one another in that there's just not enough, there are not enough rules right now. I don't think either one of them is a bad thing, but there's got to be more rules. And I can't wait to see, Adam, you know, a lot of these guys who have transferred now twice, and Dawson Garcia, you know, transferring and going to Minnesota. How many of those guys are going to have to actually sit out a year? I think that's worth watching. And I don't know how many people have done it. Let's say it's 20, and it might be more or less. I don't know. What percentage of those guys actually end up sitting out a year? Because if it's low, then watch out, because it's just going to be just that. Free agency every single year.
NIL, as we all understand what it's supposed to be, is good. Of course, Jamie Ortega should be running camps in her name and
being able to say, this is a Jamie Ortega camp.
Of course. That is an absolute no-brainer. The problem is that the NCAA put it in with absolutely no rules whatsoever and didn't anticipate that this is where we would be less than 12 months later.
Or did anticipate and was just like, you deal with it.
Right. And as you heard Nate say, a whole lot of it is dependent on what state you happen to be in.
That's great. By the way, do you think those – how many jerseys would you give to a basketball player if he just kept selling it?
And imagine what you could sell a Carolina Armando Bacot jersey for.
Right. I mean – right.
I don't know if we're going to solve that issue today.
Probably not today.
But I'm going to tell you what, somebody needs to. or else we're all going to be watching something very different than what we meant to be watching.
Yes. Sooner rather than later, too.
Right.
I think like a decade from now, and not that that's super soon, but it may look totally different from what you think of now as college athletics.
And we'll all be wearing pod shirts.
Yeah, that's right. I will proudly wear a G College shirt at that point in time.
Big news from two former pod guests, Brad Frederick and Heather O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Both ran the Boston Marathon on Monday.
That, Adam, is big time.
Well, Brad Frederick, we see him running pretty much every day. And I did not know he was training for the Boston Marathon because he was trying to keep it on the down low. Same way I did, too.
Yeah.
Heather O'Reilly, I just needed something to do, so she went and ran the Boston Marathon.
And one of the signs that Brad's wife was holding up, or the people supporting Brad, I saw the picture on Instagram of Brad and his wife holding it up, had like all the different cities he had been training in this year as he traveled around with the Tar Heels. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you even have the desire? I'm not saying could you. I'm saying, do you even have the desire to ever think about running a marathon?
Absolutely, unequivocally, no.
I don't think, no. Even when I was running a lot, no big deal. I don't think I would have ever wanted to run that much. Even a half marathon seems like a long way to me. Maybe like a 10-miler. Maybe I could do like the Tar Heel 10-miler.
Huh. You might see some Duke fans.
That's what I've heard. Bang, bang. My friend.
Yeah.
Mama Jamma.
I mean, you said even a half marathon like that's nothing. Like 13 miles.
Yeah, that's still 13 miles.
Like, would I run from here to Cameron Indoor Stadium? No.
Would you run away from Cameron Indoor Stadium back to here? More likely.
More
likely.
possible. I mean, we know sometimes a bus can't even make it that distance.
It's treacherous.
So, congratulations to both Coach Frederick and Heather O'Reilly. Heather O'Reilly also going to be on American Ninja Warrior.
Go get it.
You just need something to do when you're not an assistant coach for one of the best women's soccer teams in the country.
Yeah.
Let's see. Kenna Walker is trying to join the 100% Pod Club.
How close?
She's gone back and she's listening to some early episodes.
I would would I want to go back and listen to some early episodes?
Well, I think I might have to because Kenna says high recommendations for the Jay Billis episode in episode 12.
Yeah, I was about to say that was super early.
Because apparently there's a lot of discussion of future of college sports that has actually come true.
Oh, that was probably us knowing everything, not Jay.
Yeah, we were probably like, Billis, let me tell you how this thing's going to go.
I'll tell you a little thing called NIL, Jay.
Here's an idea I had, Jones. I think it was about 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Who knows what Adam had been doing?
What about a pod cruise? Through the GAA, they're always doing those trips.
Yeah.
Those Tar Heel trips.
Yeah, we could be the hosts.
That's what I'm saying. Why couldn't it be a pod cruise? Jones and Adam and their families are there, free of charge in the finest rooms on the ship.
Yeah, let's get that part. Those are our demands.
And we go somewhere that Jones and Adam want to go.
Disney World, obviously.
Fort Worth. And we have pod-related activities.
Cruise to Fort Worth.
We could cruise from baby Charleston to Fort Worth.
What would be the pod-related activities?
Panel discussions. Viewing of Top Gun in the ship's onboard theater.
Actually, now that would be kind of fun.
That would be awesome.
Okay, so there's 1 2-hour window blocked off.
You didn't block off pod discussions.
Okay. I mean, I assume, is this all-inclusive?
In terms of what?
Oh, food and beverage.
Well, that's up to the GAA. They know all the details of this. I don't know anything about this. The only part I know is that Jones and Adam and their families go for a very reduced cost to a place they want to go.
Yeah.
Like, this cruise can't go
Look.
to Syracuse.
I want to come up with a big idea that's really hard to put together and let somebody else deal with it.
This is how people get to executive type positions, Jones.
Adam is now officially executive VP of marketing for the pod.
I'm actually an assistant athletic director right now. You're welcome. They just slid the business cards under the door to Pod World headquarters. I think people would come to this. What if we did the potties live on the pod cruise?
Now you're making it a pretty attractive deal, Adam.
And if you go on the pod cruise, perhaps you are eligible for a potty. Potty fan of the year.
Whoa.
I know.
What up, Tar Heel Bird? It's an idea. It is an idea that I don't hate.
Okay, that's a strong yes. That's a lukewarm 6 right there. GAA, call us.
Yeah.
This all happened because the GAA sent me some email talking about their trips. And some of them were hosted by, I didn't know these people.
Who gets to host them? Why don't we get to
You
host
know who
them?
used to, Woody hosted one time. Why aren't you doing that?
We should host them.
That's what I'm saying, the pod cruise.
Somebody wants Eric to host. Who wants
No.
Montross?
No, he can't even fit in the cruise ship bed.
Yeah.
The pod cruise.
Yeah.
Maybe we start smaller or more local, and we'll expand it each year.
Out there to University Lake.
We'll go to Jordan Lake on a paddle boat.
We'll get the boat that they named for Wanda Williams, and we'll row you around the lake.
We'll perch a potty right on the bow.
Yeah, that's your motivation to keep rowing.
I really think it could be something. Call us.
Okay, before we navigate the waters of the rest of the pod, adjust that audio. It's ad time.
Okay, we've got a couple emails that are very important. One is from Susan Youd. Now, as you know, Susan Youd is a potty winner, and she honestly seems a little depressed that her reign as best Storytime potty winner is almost over.
I'm going to tell you something. What an email this is. What an email.
She went on vacation, Susan did, and came up with a few podcast thoughts. Number 1, only Skittles she could find in Spain were U.S. Skittles.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing.
That sounds like contraband, Susan.
Yeah.
Number 2, Adam would have loved all the music in our hotel because it was all played in halftime, which made it inspirational.
And classy.
Well, I bet Susan was about ready to go out and
Yeah.
tackle Spain. Were you there for the running of the bulls, Susan? I bet you were ready to wrestle those animals.
Everybody else
around.
has got some pump up music going, and Susan's got her playlist at half speed. Like, Susan, are you sure this is going to get you ready? I'm in a classy state of mind now, guys.
This is Danger Zone and halftime. I'm ready to run through a brick wall. Susan did not see one Duke shirt on her entire vacation. What a vacation from life. Susan also gives us a story about watching the game, which is more appropriate for story time.
Okay.
This brings Susan to her final thoughts from March. Susan needs some help with a decision.
I got to tell you, Susan, you're not going to like what I have to say.
Here are the words from Susan. I may have told my friends and family while filling out my bracket that if the Tar Heels made it to the Sweet 16,
What an aggressive move
I would finally get a tattoo.
for the Sweet 16, not for a championship or the Final Four.
My thought, well, we don't know what time this agreement was
Well,
made.
that's what. Okay, you finish, and then I've got some questions.
My thought was a small Tar Heel tattoo. This would be my first tattoo. By no means did I expect the tournament run that the Heels had this year, so I didn't think this was actually a possibility. Susan, Sweet 16.
Yeah.
You didn't think Sweet 16 was, you didn't think beating Baylor could ever happen?
Have you ever been inside and been inspired by Dickies Arena?
Fort Worth, one of the top 2 cities in America? Baby Charleston, the other? Susan's question is, if I don't follow through with the tattoo, am I creating bad mojo for the future? What should I do? Do I get the tattoo? Help. Thoughts.
You got to get the tattoo. You have to. My number one question is, how serious was this bet? right?
Right.
Like, was it like, oh, I'm going to put the heels to the Sweet 16 in my bracket? And she's like, oh, if they get that far, I'll get a tattoo. Like, is it like everybody's just joshing around? Or is it like, you're like, look, I'm serious, guys. I will get a tattoo if the Tar Heels go to Sweet 16. And then if they don't go to the Sweet 16, then you've got to do whatever. Whatever the bet is. I am leaning heavily towards you have to get it. And if there is a first and foremost expert on tattoos, it is Adam and I are 1A and 1B. And we've talked to Armando about this.
Right.
I think I'm leaning real heavily towards you have to get it unless it was just a throwaway line that wasn't a big deal. I could see you getting out of it that way, but unless it's that, I think you have to.
I'm going to send this to our resident tattoo expert, Armando Baycott.
Yep, let's get his word.
And we're going to get his thoughts. I lean towards what Jones said. I mean, was this like a, if they do it, I'll get a tat? Or was it like all right, everyone gather around in a solemn candlelit circle.
Right.
And declare what you will do if the Tar Heels make the Sweet 16.
Right.
If it was the latter, I feel like you probably need to. Now, if we come to the conclusion that Susan needs to get the tattoo, and we've met Susan.
Yep.
What do you feel would be appropriate and where?
I feel like that's hard for me to say. I like the idea of the little, if you're going to get a Tar Heel inspired tattoo and you want to keep it classy, right?
Right.
I think I'd go foot instead of the NC. Also, I think the NC would be hard. I think your chance of having the NC look wrong is higher than the chance of having the foot look wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I think now, obviously, any tattoo artist worth his or her salt would be able to do the NC logo. But that could be tricky, I feel like.
Well, I think the coolest one would be Strutting Ram.
Ooh, that would be tough to do.
But that's got the highest probability of being done poorly.
As far as where, I think fullback. Can you imagine if Susan had a fullback tattoo of the Strutting Ram? Be like Susan's at the beach with her grandkids, and she's like, "Oh, never mind, Ramsey's back there. He's strutting with some anger from 1987."
I think the foot is easier to render on the body. And I think I'm trying to think as if I were Susan. What about ankle?
Oh, I think that's the play. Wrist, something's
Like inside of the wrist?
Yeah. Wrist, ankle.
Inside of it, how much does Susan want this to be seen? Okay, we have a response from Armando Baycott.
Wow, you guys are just that tight of text bros, huh?
Yeah. Susan, I'm sorry to tell you that Armando has replied as follows. Ha, ha, ha.
Oh.
Yes, with 5 S's. Now, let me translate college lingo into pod lingo for anyone who doesn't speak to college students regularly. This means, Susan, you have to do it. And not only do you have to do it, Armando Baycott told you that you have to do it.
Yeah, now what? Yeah, now the mojo's you've totally ruined it, Susan, if you don't get it.
If you don't get it and the Tar Heels don't win the national championship in 2023, it's probably your fault.
Right. Just remember 1997 Arizona game. My mom hadn't watched any games. Since she comes in there and watches the game, we saw what happened. So if you want to carry that weight around, Susan, that's on you.
As Jones's mother has had to for 25 years. So send us a picture of that tattoo when you get it, because it sounds like it's happening.
Yep.
The other email that was of great importance was from Gina Reynolds.
Okay.
I agree with Gina in this case. I cannot find the email, but I can tell you what she was getting at, which is she thinks that we may need to rename Late Night in HD, which, as you remember, was the name of Late Night this past year. She thinks perhaps, here we go, petition to rename Late Night with the perfect new name. We should change Late Night with Hubert to Live Action with Hubert Davis.
I got to say, I like this idea. That is something that Hubert Davis says a lot. It came into the conscious of Tar Heel fans due to his interview that got so much traction during the national championship game because everybody's, you're doing these in-game interviews now with the coaches. And he was all fired up. But that is something that he says. I mean, you and I have both heard him say it in the practice court and with the team and all those kind of things. So that's not just something that that's not the first time he said it. It's the point. I kind of like it, Adam. It ties in with him. It gives you you're like, oh, live action. Like something, it gives you that feel like, hey, something's going to happen. There's going to be some cool stuff going on. I mean, I like it. I like this idea.
I'm in full support of this idea. I've always been a little troubled by late night because it occurs at 7 p.m. It made sense when it was late at night.
That's late for Adam.
Well, yeah, but the general population, Susan and I, are in bed by then admiring our tattoos. Not together. Verlin would never allow that.
Adam, where are you going? You're just talking. I'm just going to let Adam keep talking. We know what he's saying right now.
Live action with Hubert Davis. I support that, and I'm going to take that to the highest possible level and suggest that.
You going to text Armando again?
And I'm going to say that I came up with it. I've TM'd it.
Yeah, I already TM'd. Sorry, TM'd. It's ours now.
And all T-shirt sale proceeds will go to the pod.
Did you see that USFL kickers are mad because they think the chips that help with the lasers in the football are making the kicks not go straight?
Well, that's what I'd expect a kicker to say.
Yeah, especially one who's in the USFL.
Last thing, big news.
Okay.
Jared McCullen sent us this tweet. Hallmark locks down Taylor Cole as Christmas movie arms race escalates.
Yep.
This is from TVLine.com. Hallmark Channel's parent company, in the wake of GAC family noisily snatching away Christmas movie queen Candace Cameron Bure, has announced that it has signed Taylor Cole to an exclusive multi-picture overall deal. So we touched on this back when the Candace deal occurred. It's a Christmas movie star war going on out there right now on these streets.
I really wish, Adam, that we would have gotten on the Blue Dogs radar sooner so that now people will be battling to give us big Christmas movie contracts. I'm not sure we're I mean, Adam would be the angry grandpa and I'd be the goofy neighbor. So I'm not sure we'd be the main characters.
You have to have those characters.
Yeah, that's true.
Taylor Cole's most recent Hallmark offerings include, let's see if Jones knows any of these, Making Spirits Bright.
It sounds pleasant.
One Winter Proposal.
I wonder what happens in that movie.
One Perfect Wedding.
Was that the sequel to One Winter Proposal?
So here's the way the sides are shaping up in this colossal clash of the Titans. Hallmark has inked multi-picture deals with Andrew Walker, Lacey Chabert.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Holly Robinson Pete.
I've heard of her. That's a good one.
Brennan Elliott.
A dude, yeah.
And Heather Hemmons. GAC family.
Oh, boy.
Candace Cameron Bure, Danica McKellar, and Lori Loughlin.
Hey, GAC family. Somebody just was like, who was on must-see TV on ABC in 1990? They're like, well, guys, don't get any bigger than these three.
Are the Olsen twins available? Well, that one Olsen's in Marvel. I'm not sure we can get her, but try some of the other ones. I mean, with this, if these two...
Who would have thought that the Olsen that isn't the twin, one of the twins, ends up being the most successful?
Well, in movie terms, but the actual Olsen twins have like $1 billion from their clothes. I think if these two teams lined up, as of today, pending any future signings, I think I'd go GAC family.
Well, yeah, but you would, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Danica McKellar's there.
Now, I see one area of weakness in our squad. We have no guys.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe it could just be a bachelorette party on Christmas.
And another potential problem, Lori Loughlin may be in jail right now. I'm not sure. But imagine the story possibilities that opens up.
Just like sign that contract fast.
Christmas in the pokey. Nobody's done that one yet until now.
That's not what Green Mile was about. Okay, I have a quick email I want to get to, and then we'll get to our stories to finish things up. Greg Hardy, Adam, sent this in. No big deal, Adam. I met Greg and his family at Chapel Hill Sportswear last Friday, and he said, Jones.
You ran into a lot of people this weekend because Brady Manick told me that he ran into you on Franklin Street.
One on Franklin Street, but yes, I saw him at Al's Burger Shack, not a sponsor of the pod.
That's on Franklin Street.
There is one in Southern Village, Adam.
Oh, he
Thank
did
you
not.
very much.
He didn't specify that you were at the one in Southern Village.
I was eating there with my son after game 2 of 3 of a AAU basketball extravaganza. And Brady walked up, and I was like, "Hey, Brady, what's going on?" And it was an all-time like Brady going like, "Okay, I'm gonna pump myself up to talk to a Tar Heel fan." And then he was like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?"
Brady said that you were in disguise because you had a hat on.
I
He
did.
wasn't expecting that.
I had a hat on. Sometimes I wear a hat. I'm a man of mystery, Adam. Back to Greg's email. Greg said that he enjoyed meeting me at Chapel Hill Sportswear last Friday. No big deal, Adam. As I learned, and as Greg says in this email, he says, my boys love listening to the pod. It inspired them to start their own podcast. So a big shout out. Now, don't go only listen to their podcast.
Yeah.
But it's called the Sports Bros Podcast.
That was the name we almost picked for this one.
I know. They were so excited to meet one of their heroes. Again, please, no big deal. This language a little stronger than I remember it being. They live in Hickory, only been to Chapel Hill a few times. It was their son Caleb's 10th birthday. They went and watched the Diamond Heels, had a great trip to Chapel Hill. So he said, also, we are the family that sent in our own One Shining Moment video during quarantine that you guys mentioned on the pod. So thank you, Hardy family. And it was Caleb and, I can't remember the other young man's name, but Sports Bros Podcast. Apparently, because they told me this, that there's a couple of podcasts called the Sports Bros Podcast. So you got to look for the one that looks like Caleb's on the front. So just focus in on that. So Greg, Caleb, the Hardys, great to see you.
If Susan got a G College tattoo,
A G College tattoo.
would you permanently guarantee her a potty?
Yeah,
Like
of course.
all-time potty.
Yeah, she just gets a lifetime potty at that point.
Right. Like a little bigger statue than the one she has now.
I don't control the statues, Adam. You do.
I would be willing to look into that. If it's a G College tattoo in some form or fashion, we will make that happen.
All right. Boy, Adam, we're recording a little later in the day than we normally do. Adam's gone loopy. I don't know what's happening. All right, before we get to our emails, a reminder not to let your outside chores or projects cause you to miss any Tar Heel game action. Whether you need to mow it, till it, or move it, let LS Tractor help make short work of it. Current offer is a free loader with that purchase of a tractor. That's right, Adam, a free loader. I always forget about it. I normally skip that sentence. But hurry, a deal this good isn't going to last forever. LSTractorUSA.com. LSTractorUSA.com to learn more. LS Tractor, now you can do more for less. Elizabeth Eford DM'd us, slid into those DMs late at night, and she was saying that she can report the RDU LS Tractor and its loader are doing well, and took a picture.
Look how happy she is that
She's got Tar Heel shoes on.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to sit here and present the LS Tractor.
I think the RDU LS Tractor has to be one of the most photographed sites in the Triangle. Caleb, don't you call LS Tractor and try to steal our sponsorship.
We also got a good gift. Did you see this? The gif of the bang bang, my friend.
Who did that? That is good work.
Yeah, this is good podding right here, but just trust us, it's cool.
We will not be able to retweet that or use it on the video pod.
In no way.
I asked Brady Manick why we could not buy a Bang Bang My Friend t-shirt.
Right?
And he said because he has not produced one yet. And I said, well, I understand the mechanics of production.
Did you then go, gotcha, TM? Boom, Manic. I just TM'd you.
He said several people have been in his mentions telling him that he needs to do that shirt, but to this point, he has not.
Okay. Adam, 2 stories to get to today. We reached into the grab bag, pulled out 2. Okay, so our first story comes from Chris. And Adam, I don't think I should play Mr. Goosehonkers under this.
We have looked in the files and determined we don't have a slowed down version of Mr. Goosehonkers.
Yeah.
So there's really nothing appropriate for this.
Yeah. I think I just need to read it.
Okay.
Okay. Chris's story starts like this. My last conversation with my mom was April 1st, 2021. I stopped by her house after work to say hello. I broke the news to her about Roy's retirement announcement, and we wondered if it was some crazy April Fool's joke. Side note, it is amazing how many people thought it was an April Fool's joke.
Yes. Yeah, have we ever discussed, they did have that conversation beforehand.
Yes. It was just like Coach Williams couldn't do it any other day, and he wanted to go ahead and do it. He didn't want to wait till the next week.
Guys, I've got to play Augusta.
Yeah. Okay, back to Chris's story. So, they wondered if it was some crazy April Fool's joke. Adam, she passed away early morning, April 2nd, 2021, so the very next day. 2.5 years earlier, Mom had been diagnosed with ALS. Devastating diagnosis for an active, healthy 68-year-old, truly enjoying her golden years. There's a lot of things to hate, Adam. ALS is near the top of the list.
Yes.
Despite being raised a Buckeye, Mom became a huge fan of the Tar Heels after moving to North Carolina in the early 1980s. She happily sent me to 3 summers of North Carolina basketball camp and later was thrilled to have my sister attend undergrad and dental school at UNC. He said, side note, I went to Middle Tennessee State despite my love for the Heels, but he did attend while UNC alum Randy Wheel was head coach.
Yep.
I think that's an honorary degree.
Yep, honorary doctorate.
After her retirement, she savored every moment during basketball season, but had a special fondness for the ACC tournament. I like this part. She would buy a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada beer, French onion dip, and a bag of chips as her go-to supplies for every tournament. The best part is, Adam, somehow she managed to save enough to still be enjoying it on Championship Sunday or now Championship Saturday night. That's good planning. She knows what she wanted.
Well, that was a great stash when you had Friday, Saturday, Sunday tournament, but then when it started going from like March 1st to March 14th, she was like, I need some more chips.
I guess I'll crack my Sierra Nevada at noon on a Tuesday, everybody.
Clemson, Boston College, I'm going to have 2.
Woo. One of her bucket list items was attending the ACC tournament. So in 2019, I flew home and took her to see Kobe, Luke, and Cam play on the Friday of that year's tourney in Charlotte. We had a great time watching all of the games that day, even though we won't mention what happened in the tournament. In the summer of 2020, we moved Mom from her home of 35 years in Hickory, North Carolina, to live with us in Massachusetts. Her grandkids and I were able to watch quite a few games with her at her new home this past season despite her failing health. It was time well spent. I know how much she enjoyed it as well. Fast forward to the opening round of this year's NCAA tournament. We had recently moved into my sister-in-law's home, to whom we had given some of my mom's furniture after she passed away. After the round 1 victory over Marquette, Adam, Chris realized he had watched the entire game from, quote, Mom's chair, which she had brought with her from Hickory. She had watched countless games from that chair over the last 15 years. There was no doubt where Chris would be sitting for the Baylor game and the St. Peter's game and the Duke game. Seeing the date on the calendar for the Duke game was a bit foreboding. It was the anniversary of Mom's passing, was a time for joyful remembrance, not gut-wrenching stress. But alas, the Heels played and pulled it out. It turned out there was no better way to celebrate and remember her life than jumping around the living room like fools at almost midnight with my kids. She would have been so excited to watch that game, and it was awesome to share that memory with my children. Go Heels. playing on the anniversary of his mom's passing, and the Tar Heels get the big win. Chris, great story. Thank you for sending it in. Okay. Joe sent in this next one, Adam. We will fire up Mr. Goosehunkers for this one. And Joe's story starts like this. My story of watching the Duke game is that I didn't watch the Duke game at all.
Plot twist.
I was in Chapel Hill to see my son, who's a sophomore at Carolina, on Friday night and decided to stay the weekend on the slim hopes that we beat Mike Krzyzewski. I will use not the term that was used in Joe's email, and Franklin Street gets stormed. So I watched the Kansas-Villanova game at the Carolina Inn like a sane adult. Then when it came time for our game, I went to my room and literally hid under the covers. Why? Austin Rivers. I don't watch us play Duke because I don't have an emotional reservoir deep enough to watch it, particularly during K's last season and especially during the Final Four. He did say, P.S., unless my client who has floor seats asks me to go, in which case we are 4-0 against them. So Joe's just reminding whatever client that is that if you want to keep giving him tickets, that's fine.
On the floor, if possible.
Yeah. So I went to my Carolina Inn room at introductions, texted my family and Carolina friends that I love them, turned off my phone, and watched Avengers Endgame until 10:45 when I expected the game to be over. Adam, would it have killed you to send me a text before your long nap in South Bend this year?
Dear Jones, wife and kids, I love you.
I love you all. I will be now hibernating for the next 3 hours.
I'm in South Bend and it's 11 degrees.
So he was watching Avengers Endgame till 10:45. He paused the movie right around 10:45. He said, as he did so, Thanos, parentheses, Coach K, question mark, was about to destroy the world. As the sound muted, I heard a guttural scream from the Carolina Inn lobby or rooms or maybe even the bar. So he checked ESPN. The Heels were up 1 with 3 minutes to play. Well, Joe couldn't turn on the TV or follow the score because that would be the biggest jinx of all time. Well played, Joe. I distracted myself with more Avengers for 5 minutes. Joe then goes to ESPN and the Heels are up 4 with maybe 11 seconds to go. I assume Joe's saying he's checking the score on the ESPN app. Not
Right.
I throw on my clothes, sprint alone to Franklin Street, where I was the oldest guy by 3 decades. I just reveled in the elation and pure joy. Joy was capitalized. For 20 minutes, was about to head back, and wham, also capitalized. Out of the throngs of thousands, Adam, Joe's son jumped into his arms, literally with tears coming down his face. We did it, Dad, said Joe's son. We did it. I have dreamt of this moment ever since I was a kid. Let's blanking go. Go had about 9 O's on the end of it. And that, Adam, is how Joe didn't watch the Duke game, and it was one of the best moments of his life.
That's a memory they'll never forget.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think Joe could actually pay attention to Endgame, knowing that the game was going on? Like the real Endgame?
I especially questioned those 5 minutes after he had seen the score.
It had to be tough.
Yeah.
I
I've done stuff like that before, though, with things where I'm like, okay, I know the answer is coming now or whatever. Like, I know the report's out or I know whatever, and it's just like I'm just not gonna think about something else.
I did that when Duke played Texas Tech this year. I did not watch
Oh,
that
yeah,
game.
Adam refused to watch it.
Didn't watch it. Didn't know anything about it. And then kind of like Joe, I turned on the TV once I thought I was at a safe point, and of course, they were freaking winning, and that just made me madder in some weird way. But it all ended up gloriously. That's my story of how I didn't watch Duke play Texas Tech.
Adam's story starts like this. All right, Adam, anything else?
No.
All right, well, we expect some news from Caleb Love in the near future.
Should I text him?
Yeah, just text him. Caleb, 2 questions. should Susan get a tattoo, and are you returning for your junior season? So we will have certainly some reaction to that whenever that comes. We still have some interviews that are built up that we really need to get to and will eventually. And who knows, a bunch of other stuff. Plus, there's some rumors swirling in the wind, Adam. A Roadhouse Challenge or a game rewatch. There's some rumors out there. So we'll try to confirm or deny them.
If those rumors come to fruition, I'm going to need to actually watch those things.
Yeah. Okay, Adam, anything else?
I'd like to let Susan know that I asked Armando what she should get, and he said foot.
Yeah, good call. Well,
So you and Mondo are basically the same person.
Tat Bros. Well, Susan, it's settled. Send us a picture when you get the tattoo. But for now, we're going to let Nate Wood and the RZA get us out of here on the latest edition of the Carolina Insider.
This is Nate Wood. See you later, Big Grits.
When I was small, we had nothing at all. We used to eat grits for dinner.
Pound box of sugar and a stick of margarine. A hot pot of grits kept my family from starving. Steamy hot meal served less than 5 minutes. Big silver pot, boiling water, salt in it. House full of brothers and sisters, the pot's missing. Pilgrim on a box on the stove in the kitchen.
When I was small, we had nothing at all. We used to eat grits for dinner.
See you later, Big Green.
The preceding has been a Learfield presentation of the Tar Heels Sports Network.